Okay, well, good evening, everybody, or good afternoon, wherever you might be. And welcome to another Harif lockdown lecture. This is actually the 12th that we've done. For those of you who don't know us, Harif is the UK Association of Jews from the Middle East and North Africa. We aim to raise awareness of the history and culture of these Jews. Do check out our website, www.harif.org, and our associated website, weblog, Point of No Return. This session is actually being recorded. It's being live streamed onto the Harif Facebook page, and there will be a permanent recording of it, which you can watch whenever you like. There will be an opportunity to ask questions after the talk. All you have to do is type your question in the chat box at the bottom of your screen, and we'll do our best to help you put your question. So this evening, we are traveling to Afghanistan, where there was a community of about 5,000 Jews in 1948, and today there's only one Jew left. We would like to welcome back our speaker, Dr. Harold Rhode. Most of you will be familiar with Harold as the person who discovered the Iraqi Jewish archive in a flooded basement in Baghdad in 2003. And we had a very riveting talk about that a few weeks ago. But this evening, Harold is going to take us to Afghanistan, where he traveled in the 1970s. Harold is a scholar of Islam. When he went to Baghdad, he was there in his capacity as an advisor on Islamic affairs, office of the Secretary of Defense.
Enough.
Yeah, enough. And he's also a senior fellow at the Gatestone Institute and speaks Arabic, Turkish, Farsi, and
Persian.
Yeah. Persian.
I will not say Farsi.
Hebrew. Sorry, Persian. Okay, I've come to the end of the bio. So over to you, Harold.
1 second. Oh, here's my paper. It's very good. Now you guys can see I'm also wearing jean shorts. Okay.
You look very smart from the head downwards.
Okay, let's go back to the beginning with the slides, guys, okay?
Yeah.
No, it's not the beginning.
No, it's blue mosque.
Beginning, the first slide.
Here we go. You're off.
Okay. Guys, what's the background? Why did I go to Afghanistan? I was there in September of '78. I was going to university in a place called Mashhad, which is northeastern Iran. Excuse me. And things were getting hot. We saw crazy things, riots. You know, it ended up eventually being. It was the beginning and middle stages of the revolution. And what had happened was we had to flee. And the closest border was a 4.5-hour bus ride to the Afghan border. I didn't want to go. I did not want to go to Afghanistan in the beginning. I'll explain why in a moment. But a guy I was traveling with, I was not married at the time. He wanted to go. The reason I didn't want to go is I had friends who were traveling in Afghanistan, and 2 were killed. And I wasn't particularly. I'm an adventurer. I was 28 at the time. I'm 70 now. So I was a little hesitant. But on our way over to Mashhad, we stopped in Tehran. I had been there the year before. I knew a bunch of people, and I had a talk with the chief rabbi. His name was Chacham Yedidya. And he said, he said to us, "Are we going to go to Afghanistan?" And he said, "Because if you are, there is one Jew in northern Afghanistan in a place called Mazar-e Sharif, which we'll see later in the thing. And I'd like to send 3 cans of bully beef, chunks of beef." So him, well, the moment you're going to tell me that I have to help a Jew, whatever, is all by himself alone, I had no choice. So, and besides, when things got hot in Iran, the two of us, my friend and I, were studying university there. We fled to the Afghan border. We knew that by the time they were going to take roll in classes, that we would be on the other side of the border, because that would create a ton of problems. Anyway, let me have maybe a minute or two here. I want to talk about a little bit. Who are these Jews in Afghanistan? Afghanistan wasn't a country. It was invented in the 19th century by the British and the Russians, because they both they were both expanding towards each other. The Russians had conquered Central Asia, but it's today Uzbekistan, Tajikistan. And the Indians were moving from what is today Pakistan, but not the Indians, the British. Now, Afghanistan is a very dangerous place. And the British and the Russians, sort of as a buffer state, created what you see now in front of you, this map. See the Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, where it says, that was by the part of the Tsarist Empire. Pakistan was British India. And they created this place. And there is a history there. Whoever goes into Afghanistan, it sucks you in and destroys you. In modern times, you remember the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan because America was preoccupied at the time with the hostage crisis, and that helped end the Soviet Union. The British created what is, if you look, you can see on the eastern part, you see a city called Jalalabad. There is a border there. That border with Pakistan is nothing more than a line which divides tribes, Pashtun tribes, where, frankly, in the summertime, these tribes go up into the mountains on the Afghan side. In the wintertime, they're in Pakistan, because when it's colder, tribes go up into the mountains, and when it's warmer, you go into the valleys. And from Kabul, as you can see the capital there, to Jalalabad, when they call this the Indian subcontinent, meaning sub for below, believe me, the descent from Kabul, and we went by bus, was so steep, unbelievable. So this is the end of, shall we say, Kabul of let's say, the Muslim world as we know it, and the beginning of what is subcontinent, which is India, which is 1.4 billion people. It's unbelievable. It's a whole other world. Anyway, what the Jews did in Afghanistan is that they were traders, with a D for David, traders. And there were trade routes, which were part of the Silk Route. They went up into what is today, you can see Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and they went down then into what is today Pakistan. That's what the Jews did. That's why they were there. And they were there, oh my God. We'll see shortly. And what we're going to do is start by we're going to start from Herat. Can you put the cursor or whatever on Herat in Western Afghanistan? To the left of that is the Iranian border. From there, we're going to go down to Kandahar, which is in the south. There you go, yes. From there, we're going to go up. We're going to talk about Afghan Jewish DNA. Above, right there, that's good. No, go back. There, a little over to the left, a little to the left. This is a place called Waradak, and believe me, they share on their male line DNA that I have in my male line, father's line all the way back. And then we're going to talk about other Afghan DNA. This again now is 1978, September. I don't remember whether it was 3 or 6 weeks we were there. I want to tell you, I've never in my life been to a place like this. You cross into Herat. You want to go for the slide? Let's move the next slide after this one. Please, the next slide.
Yeah, coming up.
Okay, this we're gonna in a moment we'll be there. Herat is the first city there, and we are again on a Jewish journey here. We're going to see a few other things, but I want to tell you, the moment you crossed into Afghanistan, I felt a sense of freedom I had never experienced in my life. And you could do anything you want. There were no rules. There were no nothing. But remember, if there are no rules, it's like the silliness of wanting to destroy the police in the United States. If there are no rules, then that you can do what you want. But guess what? Everybody else could do what they wanted to you. And then you realize how dangerous it is. This is the journey we're about to undertake. We go to Herat, which is about another hour or so, if I remember correctly, to the the first thing we slept in a hotel. We were the only ones who did not eat grapes that we were handed on the bus. And they also handed out hashish, which neither my friend or I touched. And I can only tell you that the next morning, the only people who left the hotel were my friend and me. The others were sick as dogs. You know, they tell you, for example, if you visit Egypt or whatever, never eat unpeeled fruit. Well, in Afghanistan, eating anything even peeled is dangerous. Why? Food is sold by weight. And so they had syringes. God knows what was in the syringes before. And they injected water into the fruits in like where at the top part in the center where the stem is. So they would weigh more, and therefore you could get sick. The wells were 15 feet into the ground. That is all, meaning dangerous as hell. You could not drink water. Anyway, the first thing we did, we went to synagogue in the morning to pray and it was a day to read Torah because my friend was the one who carried the Torah from the ark. And all I can say is that these pictures, again, in 1978. In 1982, I gave a lecture on the Jews of Afghanistan, and since then my slides seem to be missing, of the Jews in Afghanistan. And it's sorry, because when you're going to hear some of these stories, it's unbelievable. I'm giving a lecture to this crowd at Bet Atfutot, the Museum of the Diaspora. And lo and behold, in this large auditorium, which was pretty filled, I'm showing pictures. And here are the Jews. Here are 1 or 2 slides we're going to see of this synagogue. And all of a sudden, someone says, "That's me, that's me." They had, in the meantime, come from Afghanistan. They had immigrated to Israel. Again, just that you see some of these people. Now, the question is, where did these Jews come from? I said that, in fact, they were traitors. Well, the Shabak of Israel, the internal security that deals with Arab problems, the previous head was from Afghanistan. And he and we knew each other. And at one point, I told him when I realized he's from Iraq, I said, he was born in Israel, this guy. I said, I have slides, from when I was there. So I made all the stuff from Herat, and I sent it to him. I said, well, where was your family from before Herat in Afghanistan? He said, Yazd. Yazd is from Iran. So the idea of people being from a place and they were there from time immemorial is a misnomer. Jews were very, very mobile. And so these people were from all over. These are Jews. Was there a Jewish community way back in Herat? Absolutely. But just because they were living in Herat in 1978 or in 1948 when Israel was reestablished, doesn't mean that they've been living in Herat for 2,500 years or something like that. Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. And these are slides that I took myself. Okay, I have not been here. The American government was helping restore all sorts of ancient things. We're going to see, this was obviously, you can see by the synagogue. Don't ask me what you are is. Most synagogues would have a Jewish name. It may mean something else. I just have no idea. Please, the next slide. Here's the courtyard. Again, pictures are taken from the net. You remember in the good old days, and my friend and I were rather poor, and when we had to decide when we're taking pictures and we're not taking pictures, because we brought with us something like each about 10, maybe 10, 12 rolls of film, 36 whatever pictures a piece, and you thought because you didn't have, we couldn't afford to buy more film. Next one, please. Today, the internet, you can get anything. Good. Okay, now, we're now sort of in central Afghanistan, and what is interesting is here's a cave, and you see you've got caves and you've got holes in them. Why is this important? Because in a lot of these caves are hidden old manuscripts and papers. Remember, if it has the name of God, a Jew can't throw something out. So please go to the next slide. Okay. I'm waiting for Sean and Gerard, whatever, that thing to move, or maybe it's me, whatever. Good. Okay. Every once in a while, documents are discovered. If you want to see what the Hebrew script looked like, it was found in caves there. You have the lower left and the upper lower right. Below that is going to be in Arabic script. And these are, they could be trade documents. I don't know, when the Hebrew University, when the National Library in Israel acquired them, they were just beginning, what's the word, to decipher these things. There was a question from what year, and we didn't know, but there are all these things hidden, and and people like to sell this sort of thing and make money. Let's go on to the next slide. Now I want to talk about my conversations, and I do not speak Pashtun, but my Persian was pretty good back then. And we're going to look at the top. There's 3 pictures along the top. You see Afghans. You see a man. You see a woman. The woman's on the right. The man is obviously in the center. The question is, there are all these theories that some of the Afghans are descended from the 10 tribes who were exiled from the Northern Kingdom in Israel in about 782 BCE, something like that. Can we go back to the very first slide for a moment, please? I want to talk about the upper left. The guy sitting on that head there is me. Keep going. There we go. Okay. On the left-hand side, I am the guy down below in red shirt and blue jeans. I'm looking up at the statue of Buddha. This is the one that the Taliban destroyed in central Afghanistan. Now, where I am sitting shortly, can you put the cursor at the top of the head of the statue, please?
Head of the statue.
You can just, it gives you a sense of how big this is. And by the way, okay, now where the cursor is up there is where I'm going to be sitting in a moment. You can see on the sides of the statue, there are like little windows. And the people who built this, the statue of Buddha, went up the stairs there. That's how you could go up and down. So let's go to the top. Let's go, if we can now, to the slide where we were right before this one. And in this area, I had a lot of conversations with people about about their origins. Okay, who are these people? There are, in talking with people, they were surprised again that I spoke Persian, because they could communicate with us. And Persian is the cultured language of Afghanistan. Pashtun is more common language, let's say. It's like if you're upper class, you speak one way, and if you're lower class, you speak another. Anyway, a lot of these people said that they had traditions in their family that they are originally from the tribes of Israel. And they have odd names like Rabboni, you know, maybe some people believe it's from the name Reuven, the tribe of Reuven. And there is some, I can't even remember the names offhand, but there's a belief that they are us. And just to show you, if you see, there is down below, this is let us look good. You know, the one with the first shaded column. Keep going to the right, please, and stop. Good. That says G2C. This is a study, an early study of the ethnic groups in Afghanistan. And if you go down to the numbering, it's hard to read. It doesn't really matter. No, please stay on the shaded line. Go down to the numbers. There. That is me. That is my DNA. Obviously from a long time ago. And that is the male line, and this can be traced through the Y chromosome, and we're learning more and more how to do this. This, in central Afghanistan, among the Warduk tribe, is where my subgroup on my father's line, and believe me, I'm pure Ashkenazi. I am a Litvak. I'm from Lithuania area. And my ancestors, my immediate ancestors. 2,000 years ago, DNA shows, in fact, that I'm from Eretz Yisrael. That's another story. You know, what we know for the moment is where is that we have on the male line the Warduk tribe, which is it's in central, basically that's central eastern Afghanistan. They share elements with Jews, not just my line, but others. And I want to just as an aside, which I really should have started with on this slide, if you go with the man and the woman, the man is in the center and woman is on the right, go to the left. And that is me sitting on top of that Buddha's head. Now, you notice that the face is gone, because in Islam, if you have faces, please go back to them. There you go. Good. The face is you know, you will find like the Sphinx. They used in Egypt. They used it. The Muslims used it for target practice, and here they just destroyed the face of the Buddha. Do not ask me how they did it. I haven't a clue. But anyway, and from the conversations These people, yes, they understood some of them. They're of Jewish, or excuse me, of Israelite origin. That's what. But they're Muslims. They have, it's like fun, curious. They don't really care. It doesn't really speak to them. Okay, let's please go on to next. Next slide, please. Now, on the southern border, we saw the place called Kandahar. Kandahar is a Pashtun city speaking whatever town. I want to tell you, they're some of the toughest people I met on the face of the earth. There are two interesting things. This is not a Jewish thing. My friend and I, again, we're both very well versed in Arabic, Islamic things, and all that. And we went, if you wish to use a mixed metaphor, to daven with, pray with the Afghans. In places they would not allow non-Muslims to pray. But I was from Istanbul, and my friend, whose mother was not originally Jewish, she was German. We would always have a hat on and dark glasses as if he were blind. Because they would look at him and they would be surprised whether he was Jewish or not. Now, after you finish praying, which I could once frankly do better as a Muslim, not as a Jew. I am a Jew, but I don't come from I didn't know I was Jew till I was 5 years old. My parents were an anti, but it wasn't a big thing. Anyway, what do? It's today 2 mosques in Kandahar. One has a hair of the prophet, of the Muslim prophet Muhammad's beard, supposedly, and another has a cloak, a coat. And after you finish praying, you see this black table. Imagine, this is me at my house here today. You imagine that the table is maybe, let's say, a third of the length that you see there. It has a glass above it that you can look at, and a glass below it. And so after you finish, people line up like where my rear end is here. You bend down, you crawl through it underneath the thing, and you come out on the other side, and the holiness comes down and gets you. So we were able to see these things, but during the period, after the Soviet and then American, the Taliban and all that, people couldn't do it. But this is how we had to do it. Oh, I must tell you, I'm 70 here in this picture. I was 28 then. It was very hard in doing this not to laugh. If you laugh, because we're not used to such things. This is like absurd. How did they have this hair? I don't know. I hope that someone could do DNA analysis on it. Sometimes you can get DNA from hair follicles, not follicles, from hair itself. Most of the time, since it's dead, it's a little harder. Anyway, by the way, anybody who has old Talmuds from 3-4 generations ago, where their ancestors may be studied, if there are beard hairs in it, it is at times possible to submit them to a DNA test, and you can find the DNA of your particular ancestor who had that Talmud from a beard here. Anyway, that was one, and so I guess whatever holiness is in this object, we imbibed, whatever. Now, let's go, please, to the next slide, please. Now we are up in central Afghanistan on the Soviet border. Why did we go there? I think I had mentioned that we stopped in Tehran, and the chief rabbi of Iran asked us to bring 3 cans of holy beef, of this, kosher, obviously, to the this one Jew who lived in the north, in this place called Mazar-e Sharif, which means the holy grave mausoleum, if whatever. And what is interesting is that people there believe that Ali, who is Muhammad's prophet, the Muslim prophet Muhammad's first cousin and son-in-law, is buried there. Now, since he would have died in what is today southern Iraq, how did he get here? Well, the tradition has it in here in Afghanistan that they put his body on a donkey, and the donkey walked and walked, and where it stopped was where he was to be buried. And here he is buried. Now, it's a long way from Iraq, Najaf, which again is south of Baghdad. It's a long way from there to here, to where he's buried. I know Ali is also buried in Najaf, and he's now buried here as well. And I understand he's buried in a bunch of other places too. Anyway, also, this is a place that non-Muslims could not go into. But my friend, who was about 23 or 24, and I was 28, young people are wonderful. They don't have the fears that older people do, or and so we went in there and we davened, we prayed with them, and they asked, of course, where we were from, and I speak Turkish, and I said I'm from Istanbul. Now up there, they're Turkoman. It's a slightly different dialect, but it is also intelligible. Now, I mean, if I needed to, I could manage. Simple, but intelligible. Now, why did we go there? I mentioned before this one Jew that we are to deliver meat. My friend and I were poor students. We had no money. In Afghanistan, the word for to eat is to eat bread, because that's all they had. So if you want to say, where did you eat? People would say, well, where did you eat bread? Well, you realize that if you're walking, and we were walking, 6 to 10 miles, let's say 10 to 16, 17 kilometers a day, after a while with no protein, you're in trouble. And we were in Kandahar, where the cloak and the cloak and the beard hair were, and we were in very bad shape. And my friend and I said, what's happening? We'll open one of the cans of bully beef that we have. It's protein. And I want to tell you, in 35 minutes, there was something like, in Hebrew, it's Tchiyat HaMetim, the revival of the dead. We all of a sudden felt fantastic. And so anyway, we were here to find this guy who we were told his name was Aghajan Balchi. Aghajan means, Agha is sir, like John is my dear. Like if someone were to refer to me in Iran, Harold John, or Lin John. It's like the word John means soul, but it's used in terms of dear. Oh, John, my son, my soul, could you do this for me? Or John, how you doing? Whatever. Anyway. My friend and I, we asked everybody knew where the one Jew was. We arrived there, and we're sitting. This guy is sitting on an elevated platform, which was his store, and he is having in Persian a discussion, if you wish to call it that, with some of the locals who were sitting there, some of his customers. You'll see what he does in a moment, and it was just awesome. The question, what he was saying was, what they were talking is, who was there first, the Jews or the Muslims? And this guy, this Jew, all alone, and he must have been around 65 or something like 60. I don't remember. Aghajan Balchi. We'll get to what that is in a moment. That's where he is. So we're standing and listening to this. And we, said, could we join in sitting, which we did, which you sit, in Hebrew, Shiva Mizrachit, the Eastern way you sit, with your legs crossed and all that. Anyway, and we're sitting and everybody is having a good time talking. The Balchi, Balch is a place which is right next to Mazar-e Sharif. And Balch is mentioned in the Talmud. One of the Talmud scholars is called Chivi HaBalchi, Chivi from Balch. And this was the town right next to Mazar-e Sharif. And if a scholar has that name, it means that there were connections this far away, because the Talmud was produced in what is today Iraq. This is far, far away. But anyway, so Avadana Balkhi is discussing this. Now, what are his two jobs? One is that he sells dye, D-Y-E. Why? What do you need dye for? Oh, you could, for clothes or whatever, but and remember, this is not a place that there was at times, from time to time, electricity. But you went to bed, by and large, when the sun went down. And by the way, it's so natural, it's unbelievable, because there was no electricity. You got up when the sun came up. And we got used to this overnight. There was no jet lag. Anyway, what happens with, again, the dye? Remember, there are all these flocks, shepherds. And what they did was they put all the herds together, and it was kids that were the shepherds, and they would go out into the mountains so the sheep would graze. Well, how do you know which is your sheep or somebody else's? And towards the rear end, on my tribe is red, yours is green, the other is blue. And so that's what the dye was for. So when you put the sheep together, you could then separate them after everybody returns from the mountain. But he had another and more intriguing job. And what was that? He was the doctor. What is a doctor? And this happened right in front of our eyes. I just wish we had smartphones where we could take little videos. This was just awesome. People came, they described their ailments. I must tell you, I'm not a big maven of ailments in Persian. I don't know, maybe even if you know a good Persian, I don't know if you would know. Western medicine, maybe we just don't know these things. Now, what happened is that someone would come, he would explain what was wrong. Avajana Balkhi would boil water, like for tea. He put it in a glass of boiling water, like Lynn is drinking right now. And then he would write a Kabbalistic formula in black ink on a piece of paper. Once he wrote that, the moment he finished, may so-and-so get better from whatever disease he have, I don't know, whatever it was. He took the paper, put it into the hot water, all the dye comes off into the water, and the sick person drinks it. Okay. You'd be amazed so much. What do they say? That when someone is sick, God does the healing and the doctor takes the fee. All I'm telling you, all I can tell you is what happened. Obviously, people thought it worked, or they wouldn't be doing this. Well, they eventually disappeared, and it's left my friends, me, and Avajana Balkhi, who was alone. I asked him what happened to his wife. She died. And then he volunteers what she died of, Dr. Avajana Balkhi. She died of high blood pressure. Feshar khun. I remember this. I'll never forget it. Those words. And feshar is pressure. Khun is blood. How the hell would he know what high blood pressure is? But he did. And so it's like these clashes of worlds and all that. He had children at the time in Kabul and in a place called Israel. Why did he stay? Well, people stay because they stay. I have no answer for that. But it was one of the highlights of our trip to experience what this Jew, and there had been more Jews that lived there before. What he went, and they, and on his radio, he could hear Sodoya Israel, the voice of Israel in Persian. It wasn't really good, but he could. Don't ask me any of the hows. This is the way it was. But this will go to the last place we're going to visit. Please change the slide. And my slides of the Jews of Kabul, and believe me, I remember them. I cannot find these pictures. Lynn and Lawrence got from the net, and this is the last Jew left in Kabul. You can see the synagogue. On the left upper, you can see, but these are from the net. Why does he stay? Because he stays. But we were treated beautifully by the Jews in Afghanistan. Absolutely, in Kabul, they were wonderful. What happened to them after the Soviet invasion and others, I just don't know. But I do know, again, as I said when I was giving this lecture in 1982 at the Museum of the Diaspora outside of Tel Aviv, that when I'm showing these pictures, people, oh my God, that's me! What I said before, it was just amazing. Anyway, this is my adventures 42 years ago in Afghanistan, and you say to yourself, was it dangerous? Yes, of course it was dangerous. I mentioned that I had 2 friends that were killed before, which is why I didn't want to go. There was no law and order, and I guess I have a way, I guess, talking with people and getting them to not kill me. I don't know, whatever it is. And I guess with that, let's open the, if anybody wants to ask questions, or if anybody wants anything you'd like, I'm happy to, I'll do what I can. I'm happy to help. Oh my God, thank you.
Very much indeed, Harold.
Jillian Mulma, thank you for what you've just written. Fascinating and well delivered. Oh my God, thank you. Good, leave that.
And Jillian has a theory about the U-Or synagogue. She thinks it could be Yud Vav. Is that possible?
Frankly, from I think, Jillian, your idea is as good as mine. I have no answer. I can only tell you what I saw, and I assume that this synagogue was restored after I was there, because it was the only synagogue that was in use when I was there. So that is the one we saw, Mullah Meir. So anyway.
Are there,
guys.
And somebody else, I think it's Stuart Eisenberg, says, why do you refer to Persian and not Farsi?
Okay. Imagine we're speaking English and we get to the language of French, and people insist on saying, I speak Français instead of French. And that is that the word Persian is the English word for it. And in the old catalogs, for example, I went to Columbia University, they taught Persian. Later it became Farsi because the people from Iran insisted on this. Now, why was it called Farsi, and Persian is really, they're from the same root. Around Shiraz, which is in southwestern Iran, it's a big city, used to have a Jewish community. It still may have a few Jews, but it's only outside of Tehran, there's almost nothing. That province was called Pars, and Pars was the center of the Persian Empire, which was huge. It was one of the biggest empires in the area. Now, our wonderful cousins don't have a P sound. Now, I can see Edwin Chucker's picture. He can tell you that, of course, that there is a P sound in Iraqi Arabic. But in formal Arabic, there isn't. And what happened was that the language, which was clearly called Parsi at first. When the Arabs, when the Persians succumbed and became Muslim, they everything was written in Arabic for 300 years. Persian reemerges. Only Persian identity is so resilient. All the Arab world today, these were Aramaic and other languages speaking. Within 100 years, all these others were destroyed. But in Iran, they were quiet. They went underground. They had already had a very vibrant urban situation for 1,100 years before the Muslims invaded. And when it was written, there was no way to write back in where there is today to write it's a b sound with 3 dots under it instead of 1. But since there wasn't Parsi, they couldn't say it. So what happened was they wrote Farsi. Plus p and f, like pay, fay, are actually one letter and linguistically changed when necessary. I know that today the Arabs invariably have a problem. The p comes out, the p sound as a b. But Palestine, plastic, Palestine, you know where that is. And anyway, so I insist on speaking English. I don't believe in imposing your culture on other people. And that's where the word Farsi, I will call it by the English word as it was always known, Persian. One is speaking Arabic, you still say Arabic. And you don't say, I'm speaking Ivrit, you're saying, I speak Hebrew. So that's all. That's my own craziness, and I'm crazy, I promise you.
Okay.
We have someone on the line who was born in Kabul who wants to speak.
Someone on the line, Nissan, would you like to?
Thank you very much for a wonderful presentation.
Thank you. Nissan, bring up your picture. What's your family name?
Moradov Cohen.
Okay.
پدرم ربای بود اونجا.
When did your family come from Kabul to where are you now?
My mother was from Bukhara.
Yes.
And I think my father's family was either from Russia. I think they were from Russia, some part of Russia. I'm not quite sure where.
Do you remember Kabul?
Yes.
How old were you when you left?
I was 7 years old. I left as a young boy. Yeah.
And where do you live now?
Now I live in London.
Oh, okay. When are you going home? Home is halfway between.
There's Rad Hashem.
Hashem עוזר לאלה עוזרים לעצמם. Anyway, go on. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Baruch tihei.
Next, we've got Mordechai Haddad.
Mordechai Haddad has a question.
No, but Nissan, if you have anything to say, please do. And please, if I'm wrong on something I said that, please correct me. I'm married to my wife, not not this presentation.
Nissan, do you have anything? Sorry, we've gone to Mordechai. I think he's been unmuted. Mordechai, can you ask your question?
Yes. The story of the Afghan Geniza is fascinating. Do you know more about it?
It was explained to me by the head of the National Library and the guy who was in charge of procuring it at the National Library in Israel. But there is a part of it which I understand is in London. But I know it's commercial documents. They were just beginning to work on it about 4 or 5 years ago or something like that. I don't. I wish I did. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Would you have any idea where in London part of this Geniza is?
No, but the National Library will know. I cannot remember. The guy was a professor of Arabic who was in charge. He was retired. I know him actually quite well. I just can't remember.
Yeah.
The library will know.
Right. Recently,
Okay.
the library bought a couple of hundred of manuscripts, but there are a lot on the market, on the world market, that they try to trace. And I have the feeling they don't talk about it a lot, not to increase the price that those cave robbers will ask for.
Mhm.
And they'll tear it up too, because a page is worth more. Individual page is worth more than a book. By the way, there is a halachic answer to this. There's an Iraqi Sunni who has an antique store not far from where we live. And he showed me a yiriyah of a part of the Torah, just one column. And he wanted to know what it was and how much it was worth and all that. And since I know something about this, and the answer is don't. I took it to someone who does know these things, and he identified it as actually from Morocco, and it was I think it was pomegranate ink on a particular animal that is from there, and he could know the date. But I said, well, halachically, what do we do? He said, halachic ruling on everything which is found is you may not buy it. And it is for the reason, sir, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name. Mordechai?
Mordechai Haddad, yes.
Haddad, okay.
Okay.
It is for the reason that what you just said, because people will tear it up and they'll sell it as shreds and all that. And so I told the guy, I said, the truth is, from a Jewish point of view, it's worthless. Because, it hurts to say that. And when you see something like this, you want whatever you can. Look, the amount of stuff coming on the market from Iraq over the years has been huge, Jewish stuff. But, you're looking, what do you say?
But another fact is the fact that they found these documents in that part of the world. Yes. Maybe it does prove that Jews were part of the Silk Road trades, and they were very close, going left and right to the east and west, and they were part of the whole trail of the Silk Road.
Well, Mordechai, can I just very much confirm what you're saying, because we're getting more and more very good DNA studies today, because we're learning more and more. And I've done a lot of lecturing in China. And I was at a place called Kaifeng, which was an ancient Jewish community. And they've got records, they've got this, they whatever. And they believe there's a stela, a stone, which is their history. It's written in Chinese. And it tells that they were part of the Silk Route thing. And they came, which was, I guess, about 1,000 years or so ago, from Central Asia as part of the trade routes. What was interesting is that again, it's not a question for publication. Knowing that this was an opportunity, we prayed with them in Kabbalah Shabbat, the prayer for Shabbat, Friday night, with these people who are returning to who and what we are. And I took DNA samples. And the most amazing thing, most of it were female, which doesn't, and it was the female fathers that had been part of the community. So we can't get the Y chromosome, which is really the thing which helps you understand so much. Instead, but there were 2 or 3 lines. That's all we could find, and I got them. I wasn't prepared for this, so we got Q-tips, and I just put it in a paper bag with names and all that. And wouldn't you know that someone who is from Bukhara, who lives in Israel, who did the test, also tested him, and his male line and the Chinese male line, the guy from Kaifeng, in Kaifeng, they are in 1065, that's how, or is it 1055? It doesn't matter. They share the same male ancestor, same male line. And so you're right, the Jews were all over on the Silk Road. It's just, it's amazing.
That is incredible. I think we have Dory who wants to say something now.
Yeah, Dory.
Dory, you're unmuted. Dory?
I am now. I couldn't operate it myself, but when you unmuted, I think I hit the button at the same time.
Good.
Anyway, good evening, and thank you very much for this very nice talk. This is Dory in London, and I've got really a couple of points. One is more a point. I used to travel to, not quite to Afghanistan, but to South Asia a lot in the mid and late 80s. And I got as close as almost the Khyber Pass, which is Peshawar. But anyway, the point is in Karachi, in my lobby, hotel lobby, one day, there was a carpet exhibition. And I just went around to see what's cooking. And there were, you know, carpet dealers and manufacturing all over the country. And I heard Hebrew in the distance. Now, I've been around parts of the Arab Middle East, and I've never felt a place more Judenrein than actually Pakistan, even though I met a few minorities in those days. But the synagogue there was shut and abandoned. I heard Hebrew, and anyway, I met this woman who must have been in her, 40s, no, 50s, maybe late 40s, I don't remember exactly. And she turned out to be Afghan. I said, what do you do? You know, who are you? Why are you here? You know, that kind of thing. And turns out she was from Afghanistan, but living in Pakistan. And then I met her husband, and they were talking Hebrew to each other, which was very weird. Then I met a young boy, and unfortunately, I don't remember her name, because maybe you might have heard about her, because by then, presumably, there weren't many Jews left in Afghanistan. I don't remember when she went to Pakistan. So I just wanted to mention that I actually met a real Afghan Jew. But the other question I got for you is about DNA. You talk about DNA.
Can I just wait, please, before you, let me make a very interesting, I hope it's an interesting point. After the Iranian Revolution, and there were a whole bunch of people who the Iranians Jews did not allow out. There was a network, it was called Going on Vacation. From Tehran, it took you down through the deserts to Zahedan, which is in southeastern Iran, over the border to Quetta in Pakistan, and it ended in Karachi. There was one Jew named Abdul Rahman who was local, and from there the Sukhnut, the Jewish agency, took care of them. It was amazing.
I was aware of that.
Sorry.
No, go on. No, it's fine. It's interesting you mention it, because I was aware of that escape route. No, she wasn't one of them, but because you've been living in Pakistan for a long time. But I was aware of that. In fact, I met, when there were still a few Parsis in Karachi, oddly enough, I got in with a very big crowd of Parsis, who, for those who don't know, are people of Zoroastrian, the ancient Persian religion, Zoroastrianism, who left soon after the Muslim invasion in the 8th century, I think. Anyway, I met some of them, and one of them told me that they were aware of a family that was looking after some Jews, or one or two Jews who'd come through the escape route. And yeah, Sukhnut or somebody took them out of Pakistan. Pakistani government, I think, knew about it, but just kept its eyes shut. Anyway,
look, the guy who paid for this is an American living in London. And since he doesn't want to, there are some simply wonderful people who really are real balei chesed, balei tzedakah, and this is a guy who's been in London for many, many years, but he's American. Anyway.
And you won't disclose his name because he doesn't want to.
It's not right. He would be embarrassed. That's why.
Okay,
so,
we have a question from Adrian. Adrian.
Oh, yes, my question. First of all, thank you very, very much for your very interesting talk.
Thank you.
You've obviously, you've studied all these Middle Eastern languages, Turkish and Islamic studies, and you speak Arabic and you speak Persian. What led you to the study? And it's obviously led you afterwards to a very interesting career.
Thank you. It's a really very interesting reason. and you may not like the answer at the end. We're 5 generations in the United States, and my Jewish identity comes from a secular Israeli couple who they and their daughter lived across the street from us in a black ghetto in Philadelphia. The husband was studying veterinary medicine. This is in the 1950s. And I was secular completely. I'm not secular today, but I was. And I was very strongly identified as a Jew. A bit to the chagrin of my parents, because they thought it would threaten my American identity. And what happened is that I came to Israel the first time when I was 13. A bar mitzvah, pilgrimage, whatever, and my friends had gone back, so I was at every weekend. I was at their house. And if anybody knows what B'Shemesh is, across from there is a kibbutz called Torah. The wife is still alive. The husband is unfortunately dead, and we're still in touch after 6 people. Anyway, they awakened in me my first experience in Israel. And when I was 13, is why can't the Jews and the Muslims get along? And it's a nice, admirable thing for someone who grows up in the United States to find, I'm going to be the one to find that way to make peace between the Muslims and the Jews. And I already knew I had a very interesting father who was really self-taught, who he taught me how to think about the world. And I understood that if I wanted to make my mission succeed, I would have to learn the languages and the cultures of this region. I started to study what I understood as Islam when I was 14 back in America. All my degrees are in Islamic history. And I put off getting my PhD for a bunch of years and ran around the Muslim world. I could once pray better as a Muslim, both as a Sunni and as a Shiite, or it depends where I was. I learned as a Shiite later when I went to Iran. And believe me, they're different. You can get killed by going into the wrong mosque and starting to pray differently. At least we Jews don't do that. Anyway, what I really learned by, if you wish, praying with them, sitting in the coffee houses with them. I once was pretty good at memorizing Quran. It's there. There's very little left that I can consciously start right away and to recite, but I could do them a lot better when I was younger. And I used to argue with them. And unfortunately, what I came to the conclusion was that come let us reason together, and you give a little and I give a little, are alien concepts in the Muslim world. As the late, great Professor Bernard Lewis, who was the greatest scholar of the end of the 20th or the late 20th and really early 20th century, 21st century, used to say, you can summarize it as follows: I'm right, you're wrong, go to hell. And what I realize is there is no such thing as compromise. The entire Islamic world belongs to God. Once they conquer a territory, it's theirs forever. That means people living in Tel Aviv, or God willing in the next few days, areas where Israeli sovereignty will be announced. There's no difference between the people in Efrat and Tel Aviv. They're all settlers, mustaltanin. These are they don't belong there. This is Muslim territory and will remain forever. There's no way of compromising on this. And this kills me to say, but this is the sum total of my experience. It's not that you're going to find people who disagree with what I just said. But they know that if they open their mouths too loudly, they get killed. And if I can quote Yasser Arafat on this, why when at Camp David, Ehud Barak offered, and I'm no fan of it, Ehud Barak, when he offered Yasser Arafat even the Temple Mount, but not what's underneath it, in return for signing a peace agreement, final peace, not fake peace. By the way, Sadat made it, I can't say what's going to happen in the future. What's going to happen now? We have what we have now, and we'll see what happens in the future. And what happened was, Arafat, this is Clinton, Arafat, and Barak are sitting there together. And Arafat jumps up and starts to shake like this. And he said, there never was a Jewish temple. Even the Muslim, the Waqf, the authorities there published a book in the 30s, and it's a little pamphlet in English that says there's no doubt this was Solomon's temple. Solomon, we know, was the king of Bnei Israel after David united, his father united but no, from a Muslim point of view, Adam, the first person in the world, was a Muslim, even though in Islam only got invented or whatever 1400 years ago. And so King David was a Muslim, everybody's a Muslim, and Solomon was a Muslim. But then, why is he shaking like this? After he said there was no Jewish temple, which Clinton looked and said, what are you talking about? Of course there was a Jewish temple. We know that. Then he said what was really on his mind. I will not have tea with Anwar Sadat. And Anwar Sadat signed an agreement with Israel and was murdered for it a few years later. Even though when he got back to Egypt, he gave a speech and said, I did what I did for Egypt. We are wasting our money and we need our money to make Egypt great again. He said, and what will happen in the future will happen in the future. In other words, there cannot be permanent peace between Islam and everybody else. They can be nice, they can do whatever, but eventually Islam must rule. And again, I want to tell you, I hate what I'm saying. I hate it with a passion. But after living all the time, especially in my 20s, and then I worked for the Pentagon and the Office of Secretary of Defense for 28 years on the Islamic world. I wish it were otherwise, but it's not true. Anwar Sadat paid for this agreement he made with Israel, which in the Egyptian press, by and large, was called tafahum, meaning a mutual understanding at best in English. That's not what you and I, peace is what exists between the United States and Canada. You don't have to have soldiers everywhere. That's not going to happen.
Harold, we have Yeah, sorry to stop you there. The question from Edwin. Edwin, would you like to put your question to Harold?
Yes, first of all, I think you are the modern Benjamin bin Tudela.
Thank you. I saw what you wrote there. Anyway.
I don't know anyone else who's been to these places and survived it. I wanted to know the restoration of the synagogue in Herat. Who was behind it? Who paid for it? And what was the objective of the government to allow it?
I don't know. I don't have an answer for you. I didn't even know that this existed, Edwin, until in looking for, since I couldn't find my own slides that I was looking for, except for the few people, thank God I have them. I needed a few more, and I'm looking on the net, and there it's this. If I remember what I saw on the net, I may not be right, that the American government, and we have all these nice Jews who go around and they mean well. It's like the Jews who bought in Gaza Strip when Israel withdrew. They bought all these hydroponic high-tech things. A bunch of them each shipped in $500,000. I think you had $6 million to buy it or something like that. And Israelis withdraw, and the locals come in and they destroy the whole thing, because I can use the wire for this in my house for this. Exactly, Edwin, when we were in Baghdad, back in 2003, I remember in the Mukhabarat, again, where we found the Iraqi Jewish archives. I mean, there were Arabs, there were locals all over the place cutting wires out of buildings. They could use it. There's no such thing as public good.
Right.
Sad. I wish I had a better answer, Edwin. I don't know.
Yeah, that is a pretty pessimistic view. What can we do?
I think it's no. I disagree. I think it's a very optimistic view.
Yeah.
And I want to tell you why. again, I rejected the existence of God as a teenager for many reasons, whatever. And I thank God I've come to this. Hashem, God gave us the neighbors that gave the land of Israel, our ancient homeland. The neighbors He did for a reason. All they can do is say no. They can never agree to peace with us. And the result is the more they say no, the stronger the Jewish homeland becomes. And look at over the years, Israel, I remember when it was a 9-mile wide, with its thinnest around Netanya. Look at it today. Look at how strong it is economically, and I just want to say one other thing. When Israelis used to say, if something went wrong in the United States, oh my God, what is going to happen to us? Meaning the Israeli. I taught for 3 years in the summer in the University of Ariel, of course, on the Islamic mentality. Yeah. And in the summers, and America was under the Obama administration, was going a bit crazy on something. I don't remember what it was at the time. But what happened was the Israeli, they were post-army, and most of them were, they are those who were working in the defense establishment, and they were studying Middle East things. You could understand how that could be useful to them. Instead of saying, oh my God, what's going to happen to us when America was going crazy, they were saying to me, how can we help America? That's really, really, if you stop and think, interesting. That if they are saying to themselves, the bond that the Israelis feel with the United States is huge. And so,
yeah.
So I'm happy with these neighbors. The longer they say no, with the Jews, you say, okay, let's make peace. Take whatever you want, please, please. And this is guaranteed that they become stronger, more resolute, and until Iran, which, by the way, just 2 hours ago had another explosion, major explosion in Tehran.
Right.
We've got the answer to who did the restoration. It was mainly the Aga Khan Foundation.
The Aga Khan.
Wonderful. They are great people.
Nissan says the Jewish cemetery in Herat was restored by Afghans in New York. I don't know if these are Afghan Jews, or is that the Aga Khan again?
Well, if it's Aga Khan is not Afghan. But I do know there is an Afghan Jewish community in New York, because the rabbi of the Afghan community, his daughter is married to someone who lives around the corner from me here.
Right.
Edwin is shaking his head, so you must know something that I don't.
Edwin, do you know something? Wait a minute, we're not. Can you unmute him?
And Nissan also had something to say.
Yeah. Can you unmute Nissan and?
You want me to unmute Nissan?
Sorry, he's just unmuted.
Lynn wanted me to get something else ready in the background. You think someone, Nissan, you want unmuted?
And Edwin.
Nissan. Okay, Nissan, you should be unmuted.
Nissan, you're unmuted.
Thank you very much. The Afghan Jewish community in New York organized and financed for a group of Afghans to go and fix the Herat cemetery. And it's looking very, very nice now. And Baruch Hashem, they sent me a picture of my grandfather's grave still intact, with the wording on it still intact.
Wow.
This is the time that all of these graves, what is written on them, should be pictured grave by grave, and the cemetery reconstructed on the net, meaning that the list, it's all there. We've, believe it or not, it's been done for a few cemeteries outside of Tehran. And it means everybody will have access to these things. And this is the heritage of the people there. And Baruch Hashem, they should be able to find, what they are.
Edwin, do you want to add something?
Nissan's is a better story. Basically, I also know about the Afghani Jews in New York, and they really are very wealthy, very connected, help each other, and And the story of the cemeteries is one of those that I wanted to highlight, is that they actually get together, they fundraise, they send people, all done nicely and quietly, without huge organizations, just a lovely community to get to know in New York.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm not sure there are any more questions. So I think we will wrap up this wonderful evening. I just wanted to add a little postscript to, Lawrence, can I show myself? A little postscript to what you were saying about the Sunnis and the Shias arguing. Well, the last Jew of Kabul, I think there were 2 Jews in Kabul, and they did nothing but argue until one of them died. Not as a result of the argument, but it just goes to show that, you know, argument is quite a Jewish thing too, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Anyway, just to say, this last Jew, Zebulun Simantov, we don't really know why he's there, because his family went to Israel. Maybe it's a good, it's a lucrative money earner, you know, or he certainly gets paid by journalists in bottles of whiskey. You know, he tells his story, and you know, there are plenty of articles online about this guy. But anyway, it's a mystery why he's still there. So, on behalf of Lawrence here, our technical wizard, and myself, I wanted to thank Harold for a wonderful talk. And thank you all for joining us. We have.
And could you send us? Could you send the link out?
Of course, I will. I'll send you the recording. Thank you.
It's actually on Facebook.
Yeah, it's on Facebook as well, but I'll send you the link, Harold. No worries.
Thank you. Thank you to everybody who was writing nice things.
To discuss. Yeah. And we hope to have you again, Harold, perhaps about the Jews of Turkey or some other aspect. You're so knowledgeable, and we can listen to you for hours. Next week,
the stuff on Iran is really most interesting.
And Iran, yeah, whatever. So I hope you'll all join us next week for a talk with Hen Mazik, something completely different on why or how Mizrahi voices can matter. Anyway, thank you very much indeed for joining us this evening, and see you all next time. Thanks again.
Okay. Bye, goodbye.
Bye.
Mute everyone, darling.
Unmute, yeah.
Everyone's unmuted now.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.